Would you have spent over $1,000 on a table like this for your plants? Well, in this video, I'm going to explain why I did it for mine, so make sure you stick around to the end of the video to find out why. Welcome back to the channel, guys. As you can tell, I'm inside. I'm recording inside because I don't really have any more plants to show you guys. I have some, and I'll show you them at the end of the video about what's happening with them. So stick around to the end of the video so you can see them, what we currently have going on. But in this video, I'm going to talk about our flood table. If you're new to this channel, about 3 years ago now, I moved here to Australia. I moved here so I can chase my goals, achieve my dreams, and leave a country which I no longer felt good for the youth. I don't get into that too much, it's not important. However, I moved to Australia. And in part of living in Australia and chasing my dreams and goals and all of that type of stuff, I wanted to, of course, continue growing and looking after my plants. As you guys know, I love my plants, which is why I have this YouTube channel. And we started growing our plants in a small region of Australia called Toowoomba. It's actually the biggest inland city in the whole country or something like that. But anyway, I was living up there and it was a nice climate up there. It was great for growing the carnivorous plants. I was growing them there. I had all of the plants on trays in the ground, which meant that a lot of grass was growing up around them. And of course, they were outside, so I needed to protect them from the rain. I had put a polycarbonate sheet over them to protect them from most of the rain. However, for the sheets, I was putting cardboard over them to protect them from the rain. We also went out and I got a chicken wire or something around the plants to prevent the birds and, I don't know, rats maybe, from eating all of our seeds that we have planted in there, and all of these different things. And the plants were doing really, really well, except there was one problem. Well, maybe not just one, there were a couple of problems. So, of course, like I mentioned, the rats and birds, whatever, were eating them. So that was one problem we had to overcome, and we did that with the wire mesh. The second problem was the rain. Although I had this polycarbonate sheet on top of the plants, when it rained really, really heavy, or when the water table got too full, when the roof got too full of water, the water would still come in and attack the plants from the side. So we were still losing lots of plants and lots of seeds. We also had the problem of the grass growing all around the plants, like I mentioned to you, so that was blocking them from a lot of sunlight. But I guess the biggest problem that we had was that we had about 10 trays of trays to water, and watering every single one of these trays with a watering jug, watering can, became very, very tedious and tiresome, as you can imagine. So I decided at that point to achieve one of my lifelong goals in my hobby of growing the carnivorous plants. This goal was to have a flood table that could hold hundreds and hundreds of plants, and we could water them all at once very, very easily. Because as you know, if you are in this hobby and you're into it, you're properly into it, your collection doesn't stop growing. You run out of space, and we also had that issue happen with us, that we had used all 10 trays and we had no more space for plants. So of course the next step to do in our hobby and our journey was to create this table, because it would solve all our problems. We can create a roof for them to protect them from the rain and the hail. It would be off the ground to protect them from the rats, and the birds wouldn't like going around them. And we could also water all of the plants at once, and we could have more space for more plants. And of course, it will also be the fact that I am achieving one of my all-time goals and achievements that I've always wanted to have, and that was to have a flood table. So I then set out on the journey to create the flood table. Now, of course, creating something like this flood table is never going to be very easy and very simple. I personally have very, very little woodworking skills. I did build a greenhouse back in South Africa, and admittedly back there in South Africa, it is very, very difficult to have any money at all to buy things, especially something seen as a luxury like a greenhouse. So I did build a greenhouse, but it was built very badly because, of course, I didn't have the money for the right materials, and I have had even less skills back then. The skills I have now were the skills that I had from then, right? So I built this greenhouse. It was a square. It was literally a square. And what I did is I got 12 like 2 or 3 meter long poles, like just wooden poles. They weren't even straight. They're like logs from the tree. And I built a square I built a box and I put a beam in the middle also, and I had bought this plastic type of sheeting to make the roof and whatnot. It worked, but it was a disaster. You guys can see this in some of my old videos from when I was still living there. The roof kept collapsing, the structure was not very stable. There's all these different things. The point of me telling you this is that I had very little experience in creating anything made out of wood. So I had to then plan this table, and I had to try and plan it in such a way that I did not mess it up, and that I didn't waste many materials, and I could build it in the cheapest or probably the most cost-effective manner possible. Because even when I moved to Australia, I moved here during the big sickness that's going around. I moved here during that time, and I couldn't get a job in Australia, of course, because no one could get any jobs. So there's very little money for me to actually have and to go around. So I had to make this in the most cost-effective way possible. There'd be no mistakes, as least little amounts of cuts as possible in the wood, because all these things, they add to the cost, right? Of course they do. They just keep adding on and whatnot. So I started planning this table, and I had a couple things in mind. I wanted the table to be a specific height. I wanted the table to be at least 1 meter off the ground. The reason for this is because this was a very good height in proportion to most people's bodies, right? It's like halfway up most people's body. It's around their stomach, let's say their hips to their chest level, right? Which meant that you could not have to bend too far over to look at them, and they weren't too far up where you couldn't see all the plants either. They were at a good height level, and you could also easily reach across the table. That's something that I wanted to do as well. And with reaching across, I needed the table to be 0.9 meters across, right? That was a good distance for someone to reach over and grab, which, looking back at it now and having experienced the table, was a bit too far. It was possible, but it was a bit too wide. Reaching across wasn't the easiest to do, so if I ever make them again, I will ensure that the table is maybe a bit narrower. And on top of that, I discovered that everything is actually measured in 0.9 meter interval lengths. So it was very easy, I found out, to buy a plank of wood that was 0.9 by 2.7 meters long, because everything goes up in 0.9 increments. So that worked out perfectly for me. I didn't have to get another piece of wood cut. It was 0.9 by a multiple of 3 of 0.9, which is 2.7 meters. Very easy to do. So I planned the table. I wanted it to be a double level. I planned the top level. I planned the bottom level. I planned the slats that would go on the side to hold up the pond liner. All the different things, the weight bearing capacity and all these different things. I'm not going to bore you with that. There are videos on that if you want to see that. So we went inside, we planned this, me going there with absolutely no knowledge on how to build anything. Got everything cut. I was stressing out. I remember how stressed I was that the guys didn't cut it wrong. And he did cut it wrong. They always cut it wrong. But beggars can't be choosers. I didn't have any tools. So anyway, all the wood, I have it all written down here. All the wood was about $400. The cutting was another $50 or so, getting it all cut by the people at the shops. It was $116 for the pond liner, $156 for the second bottom layer, because I did that later on, and $119 for the 2 panels on the roof. For all the tools that I needed, like the drill and the screws and the brackets and all the other things, that costed around $200. And it was another $100 for the PVC supports that held the roof in place. And that's all excluding labor, guys. There was also some other miscellaneous things that I bought. So that comes to about $1,099. And like I said, that's excluding my own labor, which would make it quite more expensive, of course, as you can imagine. And all the other bits and pieces that I eventually had to get for the table. So I got all the pieces I needed. I brought it all home, had everything ready. And here I was, me, myself, and I, and zero skills, but everything I need, all the gear, no idea. That was me basically in the situation. And I had started laying out everything for the table, and I had my plan in my head, and I put my plan into action. And I started building this table. And if you guys have seen those videos, the table actually turned out all right. Of course, being a perfectionist, like most of us, there were some things about the table that I wasn't happy with, like because they cut it all wrong, I had like extra gaps of this wide, which are filled in with offcuts and whatnot. But that did upset me, that there was gaps, you know. But overall, for it being the second time that I've ever built something in my whole life, I was pretty proud of the fact that it came out to not be all messed up like my first greenhouse. It was alright. And it served its purpose for a very long time, for about a year and a half, 2 years now. It's done its job. It's done really, really well. I've been able to grow hundreds and hundreds of different plants, and of course share them with you guys, and you know, share it on the channel. And the table's kind of become sort of famous on this channel. Everyone knows the table. However, as some of you guys know, I am moving to Europe, which means that my time here in Australia is nearly over. In February, it will mark the 3-year mark of me being in Australia, and that's also going to be when I leave Australia to move back to England to be with my family, and to try and chase my dreams of growing the plants maybe a bit more easier, because as I've expressed to you guys in the channel before, it's very, very difficult to get plants into Australia. I think I might have told you guys, but I got into contact with an Australian grower who imports plants. It costs him $2,000 to bring in 8 different species or 8 different types of Venus flytraps, which are tissue cultured. So that's the easiest, cheapest route to go. It's an additional $2,000 on top of all the other costs. So imagine that for yourself, right? If you are just trying to grow plants, share with everyone, as a sort of like a hobby, it's extremely prohibitive, right? So that's why I'm moving back to Europe. Aside from all the fact of the visas and stuff, extremely expensive in this country. It will cost about $70,000 to stay in Australia. And, you know, like, who has that kind of money to just throw at something and have no guarantee of staying? So there's a lot of reasons as to why I'm leaving, guys, but it's one that I'm very excited for. I will miss Australia. It's an amazing country, and I will continue suggesting to everyone that I ever meet who wants to move to a country, I will keep telling them Australia is the country to go to. However, for me, unfortunately, that's not the case. I have other things that I need to do, you know, and the biggest one is to chase my dreams and goals of having these plants in my life. And what that means is that we had to sell this flood table. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are going to miss seeing the table around. I will show you guys shortly the plants outside, what we have going on now. I'll show that to you shortly. But yeah, the table's gone. Like, it's gone. It's been sold to someone who I think might be a subscriber or someone on our Instagram page. So if you haven't seen our Instagram page, do check it out, guys. I just share lots of wonderful pictures of everyone else's carnivorous plants. And until such a point where I can share my own pictures of plants, because, you know, I'm moving again and I'm going to have 0 plants all over again, which is fine. I'm not complaining. But yeah, guys, it's gone. Sold it a couple days ago now, and I hope the new owner's happy with it. He hasn't said anything. Of course, there's a big loss on the table, because something that is a hobby or something that's personal, it holds a lot of value to yourself, which you'll put a lot of money into, but when you try and get rid of it, people will pay what they think it's worth, right? So it's gone, and there's not much else to say about it, right? This been my old landlord, Penny. You guys may know Penny. She says the end of an era. So, but yeah, that's it, guys. It's gone. So let me take you outside, show you the current collection, what we currently have going on, guys. Yeah, you guys are going to be a bit surprised because I haven't shared this with you guys. Ooh, it's been a while since I've uploaded a video, so let me show you this. Okay, guys, so we are now outside, and this is the neighbor with all the Christmas decoration, and this is that neighbor. They're direct competition. But let me show you what we have going on with our plants. So here are all the trays I spoke about, and these are all that we have left. Those are Venus flytraps, and so are these are all the plants that we had beforehand. I bought more Venus flytraps from the place that I shall not name, the place that we don't like, so that we could hopefully sell some sundews. By attracting more people to the Venus flytrap and give them a special with the sundews, we can get rid of all the sundews. So that's the goal, guys. I don't think we will be able to get rid of them all, but yeah, this is what we have going on here. They're just in the trays. They all have water in them, and they're all out the front. They get some sunlight. It's extremely hot here, so as you can see, they all burn and die. All these nice capensis that we had were doing so well, and they all just died. can see all of them, they're kind of doing that, and they have this very strange small growth. See, they're producing traps that are half the size and whatnot because of the heat. It's quite strange, but yeah, it's just something you have to deal with if you're living in Australia with these plants and you don't have a greenhouse for them. But yeah, like I said guys, this is our current setup. There's not much else to it guys, but yeah, that's the end of the story of our table. So if you guys want to continue in the adventure of growing our plants in Europe, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that video. But until the next video, which I don't know when it will be, I'll see you guys later.